And welcome to the Alouettes Flightdeck podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football. I am Tim Capper. You can find me on X at Repact. That's REBPACT.
And I'm Cliffy D. You can also find me on X over at Cliffy D.
And before we start, we can't forget to thank our presenting partner, the guys over at SportBuff, where if you use the promo code ALSFlightDeck10 at checkout, you will save 10% off your order. They have added some new merch. New CFL merch over the last couple of days. So go ahead and check them out. But head over to sportbuffshop.com, use the promo code, save 10%, and support local.
Always support local.
So for some teams, I guess, depending on where you are in the thick of things in the season itself, Cliff, and I guess it depends on soccer, you really don't have bye weeks, stuff like that. But bye weeks can be either a positive or they can be actually a negative for teams that go on them. And I think you and I can both agree that this bye week, considering where the Owls roster currently is when it comes to the growing number of people on the injured list, did come at a pretty good time, but it also left us a week of darkness, so to speak, because we didn't hear any team news, and we didn't get any updates until this past week, practicing for Saskatchewan, who may or may not be playing this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, bye weeks are a funny thing, especially here in Alouettes Nation. I mean, you and I used to sort of cringe a little bit because you knew some major poop was going to go down during the bye week, or at least it seemed that that's what it was. Like whether it's a major trade or somebody's losing their job or something like that. There was always something like, "Oh God, what's going to happen now?" And
It
the
happened. It
last,
did in Edmonton.
oh, true, but yeah, like I mean, the past couple of bye weeks here for the Alouettes, they've been pretty. Aside from like injuries, of course. I mean, it's been pretty ho hum. Like no trades, no hires, fires, anything like that. Like it's just been staying the course. I mean, listen, when you're 5-1, which the Alouettes are, and you're a third through the season, you kind of have an idea of where things are going and what you kind of look back at what's been accomplished thus far. And the key is, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. But at the same time, too, if you're not doing anything, then maybe you don't need to do anything. So maybe it's a simple matter of no news is good news, and let's just first of all, let's see what's going to happen with Cody Fajardo and Keon Julian Grant. Those were some of the many names that Alouettes fans were wondering what's going to happen with these guys because they got banged up pretty bad in the loss against Toronto, the first loss of the season for the Alouettes. And okay, is that going to be enough time for them to recover, or what's going to happen? Like, are they going to end up on the 6-game list? Are they just going to be off for one game? What's the story? That's all we wanted to know is what's going on. Like, where are QB1 and arguably wide receiver 1? We want inquiring minds want to know. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and if we had if we were able to do it, this show is kind of it would be like a previously on type of thing because we would refer back to Flight Deck Live, as everybody knows we didn't have a show last week because there was a bye. But quick synopsis, so if we could do it, it's like previously on Flight Deck Live. The Owls did lose, but there, as I said, KJG he didn't play because he was a last minute scratch. Cody was out literally on the last play of the first quarter because of a hamstring, which we still don't know the severity of, but I guess it's still severe enough that he is currently on the 6th game. There's no surprise about that he's on the 6th. It's no secret because it was announced today. KGG, same thing. But it leads us into probably one of the, and I don't know if it would be, I guess, who you talk to, how much of a talking point it is, because I did watch a lot of the post-game scrums this week that the Alouettes were able to put out there, and it was a talking point. But obviously, as Owls fans have had to get used to, Cliff, how much information Coach Moss does not give, and I think one of the questions first out the hop was asking about Cody. And basically, Coach Moss shut this reporter down, and it was, well, on to the next question. On to the
We're
next
we're on
question.
we're on to Saskatchewan. We're
Yeah,
on to
exactly.
Saskatchewan.
Yeah, yeah.
Next question.
Um,
We're on to Saskatchewan.
but it leads us into what could be, I think, one of the big stories, depending on who you talk to, is about who's going to start for the Alouettes. And I mean, we know how Caleb Evans did last week in the last game after he came in. I understand that it was only he didn't get any reps. You and I have been um, very vocal of who we think should get a try. Because if I remember correctly, Cliff, and as if you're an Alouette supporter, you'll remember this, is that, Caleb, same thing last year, his first, he's gonna start for Cody playing Saskatchewan. I think it's I think it's pretty interesting that he's gonna be playing against the exact same team at home also. Same thing, it is a team who's also gonna be with a backup quarterback, just like it was last time also, last year in 23. But,
Yeah, it makes me wonder,
we've been
are we ever gonna see Trevor Harris versus Cody Fajardo in the Jilted Lovers match? Like, like both.
yeah.
Although, I mean, technically, Trevor Harris left the Alouettes at the altar and went off to Saskatchewan, whereas Cody Fajardo got welcomed in after he was basically tossed on the trash heap out in Sasky. So it's so funny to me though that the Alouettes and the Rough Riders have played each other since both these gentlemen traded jobs, so to speak, and yet they've never faced off against each other. Like, how crazy is that? We thought this was going to be the game. This was finally going to be the game where this was going to happen. But then Trevor Harris has an MCL sprain, and he's put on the 6-game list. Cody Fajardo now is on the 6-game list. Are these guys ever going to face their former teams? Ever? Like, at this rate? Like, it boggles the mind.
Well, it's also very possible that even depending on how long Cody stays on the sixth game, that he may not play against them in the return game in 3 games.
Yeah, let's not forget
So
last year the Alouettes and Rough Riders only played once last year because of still sort of the after effects, if you will, of the whole
mhm.
COVID scheduling post the lost 2020 season and trying to keep teams closer to home kind of thing. So the Rough Riders and Alouettes only played once, and yeah, we feel okay. Well, the next year we're going to see these two teams because we're going to see games in Montreal and in Saskatchewan. Surely we're going to see it then. I was fully expecting it. I was ready for it, and once again, the football gods decided, no, no, you're not watching that rematch just yet, or maybe ever.
So, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, it's never been any, we're not. It's been no secret how we feel on, what we saw in camp. We did see that Davis Alexander was practicing with the twos, Caleb was with the threes, and it completely flipped the script. Which obviously they think the coaches feel that's the best for the team. We did find out post game last game that Davis was supposed to come in and play a little bit in the fourth quarter, but because of the long drive to end the game for Saskatchewan, excuse me, for Toronto, that he didn't. He was all he was able to do was come in and do the kneel downs.
Yeah,
Um,
which a lot of folks were understandably insulted by. But when we talked to Davis, he got it. And that's when he had mentioned to us that yes, he was actually supposed to come in a lot sooner, but because Toronto were a bunch of ball hogs and decided to bleed the clock, all Davis could do was come in and take a couple of knees. Which at that point, like, why bother? Just if that's all you're going to be doing, then why not just have Caleb go in and finish more or less what he started? I don't know.
yeah, that's a good question. That actually is a very good question. I'm curious to know why it was done that way. But I guess it was part of the script. It was part of the script, I guess. But to me, it's concerning. I have to go back. I didn't go back and check the stats, the game prior to Cody being hurt last year, and then Caleb coming in. You know, we want obviously we want what's best for the team. Obviously, they want to try to do the best that they can in order to win every game. Um, once again this week, Cliff, we heard from Caleb saying, I had a great week of practice. Man, do not, yeah, don't say that.
Wonder how many
Really?
times he said that in Ottawa. when he was basically thrown into the fire and not highly regarded for his abilities on the field.
Well, I think what's
Asking for a
funny
friend.
yeah, I know, and it's funny, you look what happened last year, his first start, his stats were not that good, but yet the Alouettes blew out Saskatchewan.
They
You know,
did,
his
but
his stats were his stats were better the week later, but they had to be a comeback win over Ottawa. And that
right.
goes to my point is like, eh, I'm I'm curious to know why the brass and Coach Moss feels that Caleb's a 2 instead of a Davis. I've always wondered that question, and I mean, Davis is a team guy, we know that from talking to him. The
Yeah,
couple times we've spoken with Caleb too, we know everybody's they've all they believe in the system, they all believe in Coach Moss
they've all
and
bought in.
what
Yes.
they're yeah, completely. But I've always wondered that question, and, being a media type, I'm curious to know how that question would come off. What type of answer we would get saying, and whether it had been Cody or not, as an example, if we had asked it a couple weeks ago, how would that question do you think would have been answered? It's like, why is Caleb a 2 and not Davis, or why is Davis a 3 and not a 2? That type of question.
Yeah.
It just so happens that the current situation makes it a little bit different.
Yeah. And I think what the coaching staff and ultimately the organization is going based on is what happened last year. And it's almost a mirror image of what happened. I mean, uh, Cody Fajardo gets hurt. Caleb Evans comes in, wins. He is undefeated as an Alouette starter. That's the really funny thing. And let's not forget, though, I mean, he played a very terrible Saskatchewan team. I mean, they were just a rudderless ship, quite frankly. And it was more Montreal's defense and special teams that just basically kicked the crap out of the Rough Riders. More so, not to say that Evans didn't do anything of note in the game. I mean, he did a great job. He did what he needed to do, but he wasn't
Mhm,
outstanding per se. Like he was very much a guy filling a role. And that's what Caleb Evans is a guy that's filling a role, whether it's short yardage specialist or coming in when QB1 gets hurt. But let's not forget that game was Walter Fletcher going off big time
mhm.
against the Rough Riders. The defense was outstanding. Just made I believe it was Mason Fine that was the quarterback starting, and it was Mason Fine and Jake
Yeah,
Dolagala made their lives a
yeah.
living hell that game. Uh, no, actually, no, sorry, it was I believe it was Chandler Worthy that had a kick return touchdown in that game as well. So I mean, like Caleb didn't really have to do a whole lot in that game to win. You're not going to get that this go around. I mean, this is a much different Rough Riders team that the Alouettes will be facing on Thursday. And then also to the point of Caleb going to Ottawa, and he pretty much had to fight and struggle, and he got the win. He got the comeback win, and definitely he did what he had to do. But at the same time, there was a lot of cringy moments in that game as well. And once again, Caleb got bailed out by the defense, and I think also special teams too, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, when it comes to the whole team concept, you see it. That's the best example of where this team, where everybody is bought in and is looking out for each other. And
Mhm.
this is not a knock on Caleb. I don't want it to come across as that, but he was there. He did the job. Could Davis Alexandria come in and do the job like that too? I could make the argument that yes, he could have done just as well, maybe even better. Who knows? Maybe worse. But my real question though is how short of a leash does Caleb Evans have? Just based on the simple fact that, yeah, he was thrown in cold against Toronto, did not look spectacular, despite throwing 2 touchdowns. Uh, is he the guy? Do we really think that he could run this offense? Or are they able to tailor things to him and hope and pray that this still outstanding defense is going to help bail him out if need be? Because let's face it, this Saskatchewan team is not the same team that was there last year, and
No.
there's no guarantee that the Alouettes are just going to dog walk these guys like they did in 2023.
And it wasn't like last time. I'm checking that Cody got hurt while playing Hamilton in week 9 last year, and that's when Caleb came in the following week and played against Saskatchewan. So, um, again, media, fans, they are it's we are living by the decisions of the Alouettes press, and that's fine. Yeah, that is fine, but it still begs the question, and then I'll move on. Again, why Davis is a 3 and not a 2 and a face, what I'm saying.
No,
Um,
it's true. And again, we've not hidden the fact that from day one, we've been big believers in what Davis Alexander can do. I mean, he's looked amazing in preseason, and unfortunately, he's only gotten like it feels like mop up duty. So he really hasn't had a chance to show what he's able to do. Like this, we haven't been able to see the stuff that he's able to do, like he did in training camp. And like you, Tim, I'm baffled too. Like what's it going to take, barring injury, of course? What's it going to take for the Alouettes to say, okay, Davis, you run this team, you run this offense. Let's see what you can do, kid. Like really, what's the harm? What's it going to take? And if he was supposed to go into the last game and didn't simply because time ran out, okay, fine, that happens. But I mean, it unfortunately got to a pretty bad point. I mean, I'm sorry to say that despite throwing 2 touchdowns, Caleb did not look like he looked serviceable at best and middling at worst. And against the Toronto team that they faced, you can't be middling at all. You got to bring your A game. And I'm willing to give him a mulligan based on the fact that it was a short week, got practically no reps in practice. Cody got the lion's share of the reps there, which again normally he would, but at the same time you'd also have a couple days worth of practice so that you'd have at least a chance to get your 2s and your 3s, some sort of action in case, God forbid, someone goes down to injury and they have to go into the game. But yeah, to me, I'm wondering too, just what is David Alexander going to have to do to get on the field, other than hope and pray that Caleb Evans gets hurt, which obviously he's not going to do that. He's not that kind of guy. And we don't want that either. We do not want anymore. We got enough injuries. I mean, have you seen this 6-game injured list? It's ridiculous. We do not want to be adding to that. And I would hate to think that that's the only reason why Davis Alexander is going to see any action behind center is because Caleb Evans got hurt. That would absolutely suck.
yeah, it would. And we're talking about Caleb too. I mean, the Alouettes last week in the second half alone, Cliff, they held the ball for less than 10 minutes. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was 1 first down and maybe 13 total plays run. That's
If that,
horrible.
like again, you're not going to beat
Under
it.
Caleb Evans. I get it. It wasn't the game plan for Caleb Evans. I get that.
Exactly. You were trying to put a square peg into a round hole, and it didn't work, obviously. But like I'm curious to see, like, is this defense going to be tailored more towards Evans and his capabilities, or is it a simple matter of he's going to go out there, do what he can, and depending on how things go, I mean, how quickly does he get hooked, if at all? I mean, that's because we were wondering that too during the Toronto game. Was okay. It's clearly not. It's not working. What's the harm at this point? Put Davis in there and see what he can do, if anything. Like, are they afraid of showing up Caleb Evans? I mean, are they,
If a spark was needed, that would have been the time to do it, and obviously it wasn't.
right? It almost felt like when Cody went down to injury, it was like, oh, okay, like you feel the wind taken out of the sails, and at that point, it's like, okay, well, our leader is gone, and then it's like throw the other guy in there and hope for the best. And when that wasn't working, try something else. I mean, like, is it simply this? Is it the simple fact that Caleb Evans is a CFL veteran? It is the simple fact that he does have other starts under his belt. Like, again, he was 2-0 last year. Of course, that's going to play a huge factor in the decision making process. But at the same time, when things were not clicking, as you said, 2 and out, 2 and out, 2 and out, like just nothing was working offensively for the Alouettes. But the funny thing is, they were still in this game. That made me laugh. I mean, despite everything that was going on, they were still
Yeah,
in that game.
yeah, I agree. And Caleb, I mean, he's 5-10 as a starter in his career. I think most of his I think, well, puts He has what, 2 wins with Montreal.
Mhm.
Um, so it's funny, we're going up against another former Alouette this week in Shea Patterson.
Indeed. And the funny thing is, like a lot of people thought, okay, we'll see. Once again, people are like, season's over with Trevor Harris being out to injury because we don't know what Shea Patterson can do. And but lo and behold, he's holding his own and actually looking really comfortable with that Saskatchewan
Hasn't been
offense.
pretty, but yes, I will admit he has looked comfortable.
Yeah, that's the thing though. Like he, in that same sort of instance where Caleb Evans was able to come in against Saskatchewan last year, he didn't have to reinvent the wheel. He didn't have to look pretty. He didn't have to do. He just had to take care of the ball and not turn it over. And for the most part, Shea Patterson's been able to do that so far for the Rough Riders. And you can make the argument, okay, well they haven't played too many, you know, top tier teams, maybe, but they're still 5-1. I mean, that again, you're not 5-1 by accident. Just like
No,
Montreal, it's not an accident. Montreal's 5-1. I mean, things are being run a lot different with Corey Mace as head coach of this Rough Riders team, and a lot of things are starting to really click for them. Like, there's a lot of similarities between Saskatchewan and Montreal right now that you can't deny that. Wow, these are two very, very good football teams, and a lot of people were still uneasy. They figure, okay, it's going to take time for the Saskatchewan to gel and for Corey Mace to implement his vision of the team. But they're buying in right away. It's almost like Jason Moss last year,
yeah.
his first time with the Alouettes. Like they're buying in, they get it, they understand, and it's working. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to like neither team's going undefeated as we know now, but they're going to have their trials and tribulations just like they're having right now, as a matter of fact. So,
I mean,
I mean,
did Rider Nation actually see themselves at 5-1 this time at this time of the year? I think if anybody says that's the case, I'm going to call bull on it because I don't think anybody in Rider Nation saw them being at 5-1, especially with Harris being out again.
exactly. I think if Trevor Harris was playing in those games, then yeah, you could make the argument that yeah, maybe they deserve to be 5-1, but getting knocked out, you know, and even and once again too is not like Trevor Harris was lighting the world on fire either when he was playing. Like he was being Trevor Harris. He was doing a good job, not a fantastic job. He wasn't the next Peyton Manning, but he was doing fine until he got hurt. And now it's just the way this offense is designed, so that I don't want to say anybody could just step behind center and run this team, but I mean Shea Patterson's come in and done I think a very respectable job so far in Saskatchewan.
I think what we need, and it's funny, we've been saying this over the last couple of years, C3, consistently consistent Cody. Well, we can't give C3 to Caleb, but if we can get a consistent Caleb, I mean, if we can get a game from him where he has just 5 incompletions, 250 yards, we know he can run. I mean, he can do what Cody does. He could lead the team, he could lead the team in rushing, So I mean, it's just a
Yeah.
matter. Again, it started off last week first, basically on that screen pass that was intercepted for the touchdown by Toronto.
Oof.
It. We need
I,
a consistent Caleb this week.
I
Consistent Caleb.
and I think what's going to have to happen is just like the game last year against the Saskatchewan. You're going to have to lean on your running backs. You're going to have to find your receiver. You're going to have to spread the ball around, whether it's with your arm or with your feet. You're going to have to get the ball. You're going to have to start moving downfield as quickly as possible. You got to really catch Saskatchewan napping. As I said, this defense for the Riders is pretty damn solid. I mean, like, I won't put them necessarily in the same category as the Alouettes, for example, but I mean, still a very formidable opponent, and that's the one thing that I have to worry about too, especially just with how Caleb played last week or the 2 weeks ago. And
Mhm.
once again, I know he was thrown into the fire, kind of thing, but at the same time, one can make the argument is you got to be ready no matter what. Like, whenever your number's called, you got to be ready to go. And I really didn't get the impression that Caleb was 100% ready to go. I think he was ready to play and do what he normally does, like short yardage stuff and things of that nature. But he didn't look like he was ready to be a starting quarterback. And my sincere hope is that at least this year, this week's the team's got a full week of practice in. He's got to have this down, and hopefully he's got the chemistry built with his receivers. He knows he's got the guys in the backfield as well ready to support him. My hope is that yes, Caleb is going to be prepared this time, just like I think he was prepared for the most part against Saskatchewan last year. Simply put, he is going to have to be ready to go because, as I mentioned, I just don't know how short of a leash he's got. If things start to go south in a hurry, does Jason Moss say, you know what, I've seen enough. Let's see what Davis Alexander can do with this offense.
Yeah, and obviously, there's a lot of different variables too that are leading up to it, and we were talking about it before, is that it again, it's funny how much this mirrors last year and more so, I think the year before that when it comes to the amount of guys that we have on that are on the injured list.
Hmm.
It just, guys like Keon Julian Grant, I feel for. And by the way, first and foremost, being on the 6th game does not mean you're gonna stay on the 6th game the entire time.
Right.
You know, uh, there are cap issues, or cap
Mhm.
scenarios, when you're on the 6th game or when you're on the injured list, um, certain rules and stuff like that. So it doesn't necessarily mean that KJG doesn't necessarily mean that Cody will be on the 6th game for the entire 6 games. So
Here's hoping not,
some,
but
yeah, some yes, some no. I mean, it's very possible if he does stay on the 6 game list the entire time, he'll go up to the next bye week. So if my math is correct,
hmm. Yeah,
so
and it's kind of
it
crazy. It's also crazy to think about the fact that a hamstring injury. I mean, okay, it's not something you want to fool around with necessarily,
no,
but
no.
it just seems incredulous that all the even with a bye week under your belt to recover, so to speak, that it was that severe that one, it doesn't need surgery, but at the same time, we're going to 6 game him just to be on the safe side, and like, that's huge. I mean, this is why like now people are asking questions like, what, how severe is this injury? I mean, could it be something else? Is it you know
But
like
there was talk too. I think somebody brought it up on social media that they saw Cody saying that he was playing golf. If he has it, if I think I'm paraphrasing here. You know, they're hinting at, oh, his injury, his hamstring injury cannot be that bad if he was out playing golf. Really? Yeah,
uh
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, it's
well, first I'd like some
that
proof that he was actually playing golf. I mean, I didn't see anything of that.
I think it was on his Instagram, or so it was
Okay.
quoted that it was on his Instagram. But still, yes, it's a week later. If there was swelling, it's gone down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
There's still
I mean,
things you can do even if you are hurt. It's not like you're taking reps. You're walking. You're playing golf. If that was the case, I mean, it's like, if you want to know, ask Cody. Is he going to give you an answer? Not necessarily.
no.
You know,
He's not going to tip his hand any more than what Jason Moss would or anyone else on this coaching staff would do.
no, and I wouldn't expect them to. But you look, and KJG is an example. I feel bad for him. I mean, twice last year he was on with major injuries. This year now we don't know what the severity is or what it is with his shoulder. Obviously, it was bad enough that he had to be pulled pregame 2 weeks ago. But whatever it is, it's lingered that he has to go back on the 6th game because last year I think it was the um, collarbone.
Yes.
That's what put him on the shelf for most of the last half of the year,
Yep.
or last 6 games. Um, just seeing we are lucky enough to see that a lot of these guys are able to step up. And I know we'll get into who we've signed recently too, because it also leads into, how the team is um, adjusting to having these guys put on the 6 game or 1 game injury list. First and foremost, by the way, Dequoy coming off the 1 game, and it just seemed last game. Obviously, we know he's off last game, but the one prior, it seemed that I guess the severity that we were hinted at from people that we spoke with, that it was a lot worse. When you hear somebody going to the hospital to be tested out, it seems pretty severe. but maybe 3 weeks was enough. Maybe 3 weeks was enough. Obviously, it is because he's gonna be starting, which is a plus, which is a
Yes,
huge plus.
absolutely.
But it's the guys that we also lost. I mean, go check out our socials. Head over to our X account, go to Alouettes at Flightdeck, and you'll see who is currently on the list. Cliff, it's a who's who.
Yeah, I think that was,
It really is.
it is like some very high profile names are on that list, and it's disheartening to say the least. I mean, and okay, you hope and pray it's only going to be 6 games, but I mean, a couple of these guys are gone for the season.
Yeah,
Reggie
like Reg.
Stubblefield right off the bat, torn ACL. I mean, that's your season right there.
Yeah.
But
And by the way, I know I don't think we mentioned it on the last Flight Deck Live, but it was great speaking with Reg post game,
it
last
absolutely
game.
was, and he was in great
Yeah.
spirits. Definitely positive, ready to. He knows what he has to do to get back on the field, and he's going to do that. He's not going to do anything stupid. He's not going to rush it or anything like that. Like I got the impression from him that he knows he's got a lot of work ahead of him, and he's ready to do it because he wants to get back out there. But he's not going to jeopardize himself or jeopardize his future in any ways. He's not going to try. He's not coming back this year, folks. Unfortunate to say.
No.
I mean, this isn't an Aaron Rodgers thing. Playing mind games with his Achilles injury and all that. No, I think Reggie realizes how severe this is, and he's got 2025 on his mind. And
like Reggie
he's
White.
working. Reggie White Jr. You should.
Sorry, Reggie White Jr. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, you're. I know you're. Yeah.
We do have to clarify that, folks.
I know. We had a dozen guys on the 6 game currently. A dozen.
Yeah. And didn't we have close to that last year as well?
At one point we were close to, I think it was like 15.
16,
I think it
actually.
was some yeah.
That was
some ridiculous.
I think at the highest point there were 16 names on the 6 game list. It was tough. I guess there's just really no way. But what came of that?
Yeah.
A lot of youngsters got their opportunity to shine, and they took their lumps. They did not have perfect games, but they got the reps they needed to show what they can do. And a lot of those guys, I always say pressure creates diamonds, and that's exactly what happened. Yeah, they took their lumps. Yeah, they had some bad games. They had some moments where even you and I are going, what the hell is this guy doing here? But they proved us wrong. They got through they got over the hump. They got it figured out. And a lot of these guys ended up becoming integral parts of this Grey Cup winning team. And to the point where, like, okay, 2024 comes along and we are excited to see these guys in action because now we know what they can do. And now with these other injuries that are piling up, other guys are being asked to step up and contribute in a big way. And yeah, some guys are really doing an amazing job. Some guys are finding their way still. And there's even other guys that are just still waiting for the opportunity to get on the field because other guys that were injured last year are back and doing a phenomenal job. So simply put, this is what I've talked about numerous times is you got to be ready when your number is called because you just never know when that will be. And for some guys, their number gets called sooner than others. And simply put, if you're not ready to go, then you're going to be on the outside looking in. But a lot of these guys, to their credit, and this is one of the reasons why Montreal is 5-1 in 2024, is because a lot of guys have stepped up, or the guys that were injured last year are back like they never left. And to me, that's what helps keep this momentum going. It keeps the good times going. Is the fact that this team, up until 2 weeks ago, didn't know how to. It felt like they just didn't know how to lose. They carried that mentality in with them, and even if someone went down to injury, okay, we got a backup. We got someone else that can come in and do the thing. And yes, wasn't perfect, but at the same time, they got it figured out. And there's no doubt in my mind that whoever's going to be replacing some of these names, like the Cody Fajardos and the Keon Julian Grants, they will step up. They have to step up. There's simply no choice. This team has gotten now far too accustomed to winning. You really can't go back at this point. You got to go in with the thought that we're not losing. Simply put, we're not losing. I don't care whatever it is we have to do to win, we're going to do it. But we're not losing again. I think that's the mentality you've got to have if you're replacing a Cody Fajardo, Keon Julian Grant, or any of these guys that are on the 6 game list.
Yeah. Additions were Cody Fajardo, Keon Julian Grant, Reggie White, Reggie White Jr. Keon Julian Grant, and Christian Matt. Nafis Line he is a I don't know if he's a healthy scratch this week, but he is currently on the one game. Um, but
That may be
versus last
that may be a ratio thing though, but
that's what I'm thinking too, because I was just about to talk about the changes in roster. For this week, the additions for the Owls this week, because of Cody being put on the sixth game, the Owls were able to activate quarterback James Morgan, and he's now number three. Obviously, Mad is back. Sid DeQuo was back off the one game. Arthur Hamlin's back. Wes Sutton. This is something we've been waiting for a while, dude. Wes Sutton is off
yes.
the sixth game, and gonna be back in the defensive backfield.
Oh, and I'm so happy for him. I mean, this is a dude that's just balled out for the past couple of years and has been a major contributor. And I still remember talking with him last year on the show, and he had talked about his goal is to be defensive player, the like most outstanding defensive player in the Canadian Football League.
Mhm.
And you can't do that if you're on the 6 game list, folks. You can't do that if you're recuperating from an injury. So I think for him, I think he's going to be extra motivated going into this game, and he's going to want to show that back like he never left. And I'm all for that. I'm all for Wesley Sutton coming in and doing what he does best.
Yeah. From there too, it's Bryce Notree has been added. Obviously, Jesse Gibbon, he's coming off too. One of the signings, but I know we were going to talk about the signings this week. But I don't know how much of a journeyman he is, but he's been around a little bit. But Nate Bahar, a wide receiver, Canadian wide receiver, he's going to be. He was added, and he's playing this week.
Hmm.
So it's the Owls are adding guys that they need to add. I mean, it seemed to be that we needed another wide receiver. We got one. We had another quarterback. We got one. Um, you
And
know,
let's not
I,
forget, Bryce Notree was a member of this championship team last year.
yeah, yeah.
Let go during train. I think at the end of training camp, he was let go, and because the linebacking core, we got to see how strong they've been. Guys like Tyrese Beverett, Darnell Sankey, Jeffrey Kante Arku coming in and wowing everybody to date. So, I mean, Bryce Notree, unfortunately, was one of the odd men out, but he knows the system. So, what a perfect time to bring him back into the fold and get him back into this linebacking core because, I mean, listen, they've done outstanding stuff, but when you got a couple guys that are dinged up, including a Reggie Stubblefield, and while Bryce Cosby's done a very solid job in replacing him, you need that depth and being able to re-add a Bryce Notree who knows his system. When he's got the opportunity, he's played extremely well. So I'm definitely glad to see him being re-welcomed back to the team, kind of like Reggie Stubblefield last year, being let
Yeah.
go the last day of training camp. A couple injuries come about, and guess what? Make sure you got your cell phone charged. Make sure you're ready to take the call if it comes. And this is how Bryce Notree ended up back on the Montreal Alouettes.
And we'll talk about the roster that we're going, but since we talked about Nate Bahar already, Cliff, he's going to be playing behind Shedler Furvius.
Yep.
So you got
Uh,
and they're on the field side, field side wide receiver. So it's again they they they're doing what they need to do. We'll see what happens again. I said kind of a little spoiler here. They're going again with three running backs. So I found
yeah.
that interesting.
Yeah. The three-headed monster, so to speak.
Yeah.
But
Before we go any,
one thing I will say though
yeah,
with Nate Bahar, I mean, he's a very intelligent football player, and I was actually very surprised that Ottawa had let him go. I think back in February, uh, kind of like Sean Lemon, just waiting for the right opportunity to come along. And sure enough, Montreal loses a national receiver, so now a spot opens up. And yes, I definitely think Shedler Furvius will be given the opportunity to start and do exactly what he can do. But if Nate Bahar can come in and help spell him and Tyson Philpott for a little bit in that national receivers position, that's just great. I think that was a very smart ad by Danny Machocha. Just again to solidify that depth, make sure that the national receiver position is well taken care of. I mean,
yeah,
Tyson Philpott, as we know, is on another level. I truly believe Shedler Furvius will be with these extra reps that he's going to be getting, I think he will definitely ascend to that level in due time. But to have a proven veteran in Nate Behar come in and help this team out couldn't have come at a better time. I definitely have to take the hat off again to Danny Machocha for one of those underrated moves that people don't necessarily think about. But when you lose a talent like Keon Julian Grant, a national receiver, no less, you got to be able to replace with someone equally as good. And I definitely think Nate Behar definitely checks off those boxes, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing him in Alouettes blue and red.
Exactly. I want to remind everybody that we are on social media. You can find us basically everywhere. You can find us over on X, over at Alouettes FL Tech. Make sure you check out all our information there from when the next episode of Flight Deck Live will be. You'll find it there, and the time that we're going to be broadcasting. You can check us out over on Facebook over at Alouettes Flight Deck Pod, and also you can find us over on Instagram and over on YouTube. That's at Alouettes Flight Deck. And speaking of YouTube, don't forget from there you can find not only the archives of the audio version, you can find the archives of our video versions of the podcast, and you can find also any of the past episodes of our companion show, the post game show of Flight Deck Live. Also, if you want to listen to all of our archive going back all the way to the very beginning, head over to our main page over at www.alouettesflightdeck.ca. And if you're looking to rep some merch from the show, Cartoon Bird 56. It's not too early to pick one of those up for our second annual fan meetup on Thanksgiving. Do so by heading over to flightdeckgear.ca and support the show. So, there's some news and notes, but I think let's go ahead and let's at least talk about the. You want to talk about news and notes, Cliff, first, or do you want to go with the preview for the game versus the Riders this Thursday?
Let's get the news and notes out of the way.
Alrighty. Obviously, one of the main things we wanted to talk about is, the people that the Alouettes picked up. From what you saw, Cliff, anything obviously that we haven't mentioned already with the guys who were added to the sixth game or taken out sixth game. Any other signings that the Alouettes had that really stood out to you? One thing for me was that Christian Matt was placed on the sixth game. We know he had lost his starting position this year, but any of the other transactions that the Alouettes had over the past couple of days really stand out to you?
Other than the fact that this 6-game list just gets longer and longer is disheartening to say the least. But I mean, you look at the talent that's on that list and you're just shaking your head like, wow, this would cripple a lot of teams. But the one thing I will say with this Alouettes organization is they know how to reload. They know how to restock the war chest. And that's exactly what they did during this bye week. Just little things here and there. Like I said, it's also similar of, okay, let's not panic. It sucks losing Cody Fajardo. It sucks losing Keon Julian Grant. It sucks losing all those guys that are on that list. But what do? Okay, you've got Jesse Gibbon that's coming back to the lineup. He's going to help shore up this offensive line for the Alouettes, who, to their credit, have not looked terrible. Like we were talking this time last year about how Cody Fajardo was getting sacked left, right, and center. We haven't really seen a whole lot of quarterback sacks in comparison in 2024. And credit has to go to this offensive line and the work that they've been putting in. So if Jesse Gibbon can come in and help bolster that, so much the better. We talked about Nate Behar. As I said, I think just an absolutely underrated signing and one that is truly going to help the Alouettes as far as maintaining that national receiver depth. Obviously, Tyson Philpott is going to get the looks from the defenses. Like I said, and if that's the case, great, because that just opens things up for everything else, for everybody else, including the other national receivers like Shedler Fervius and Nate Behar. Like those guys are going to get looks as well, and they're not replacing Keon Julian Grant. Let's make one thing very clear: you simply do not just replace a Keon Julian Grant. He is that good of a player. You just can't plug in insert name here and expect it to be like nothing ever happened. But Shedler Fervius and Nate Behar are two guys that I truly do believe will be targeted whether it's by Caleb Evans, Davis Alexander, or whoever's behind center for the Alouettes, they would be wise to keep those names in their mind. In addition to the Tyson Philpott, the Cole Speaker, and Charleston Rambo. Like, obviously, these are all very important parts of this Alouettes offense. And ideally, you got to make the most of it. You got to do everything you can to get all of these weapons out there. You got to spread the ball around and just make life miserable for opposing defenses. And I think that's what's going to happen more than anything else. I really think this Alouettes team is so tightly knit, and they get it. They've all bought in. They've all bought in to what Jason Moss is talking about. And someone goes down.
Bought in.
Bought in. I did that yesterday too, and I don't know.
Yeah, you're right.
I pride myself on being a well-spoken individual, and then
we'll explain that in a minute. We'll explain your comment in a minute, because that's what I was going to include as a part of news and notes. But right. Yeah, that's funny that you bring that up.
Okay, yeah.
But anyways, I digress. Go ahead.
Yeah. All this to say, though, I'll summarize. All this to say that I expect this Alouettes team to, I don't want to say carry on as though nothing's happened. Obviously, losing the players that we've lost, it sucks. It definitely it will make an impact. But as I've said before, pressure creates diamonds. I definitely think that a lot of these guys are going to be expected to step up, will step up. I think they know what it takes to win a championship. A lot of these guys were on this team last year. They know they went through it. They suffered through the adversity, which I think every championship team has to go through that. I mean, if you went 18-0 and didn't have any adversity or any hardship or anything like that, you wouldn't be able to handle it. Whereas this Alouettes team, they've been through the mud, they've gone through the dirt, and they've had their hard times, and they've risen above them, and they succeeded. You saw it last November. I think this Alouettes team, I don't say necessarily they're built for this, but they know how to handle adversity, and I think they're going to be just fine. I think we give this team the benefit of the doubt as far as being able to restock, reload, offensively, defensively, special teams, what have you. I truthfully think that this Alouettes team is going to be fine. They're not going to be perfect by any stretch, but I think the moves that they've made are done with the sole purpose of just keep this going. Keep it going. I mean, you're not going to win every single game from this point going forward, although that'd be awesome. If they were to come up with another 300-day winning streak, I wouldn't be mad at that. But let's be realistic here. I mean, this team's going to go through it. They are going through it right now. But I think if any team can handle this level of adversity, it truly is the Montreal Alouettes.
It'll be interesting 4-game stretch, considering that they play they basically play they play the same two teams twice. It'll be a very interesting 4-game stretch to see what they're able to do.
Yeah, it's wild. Like Saskatchewan, Hamilton, Saskatchewan. Like, if nothing else, they get to learn a lot about those two teams.
Yeah, exactly. Also, don't forget that if you haven't already, I'm sure you still can, that the Alouettes Season Ticket Member Day is going to be held this coming Sunday at the Big O. It's over on the Esplanade. It's not going to be like last year. It won't be raining, thank God. Yeah, well, it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be a nice weekend. But I don't know what they're going to do, because considering that how much work is going on at the Big O right now with them, they've already started removing the old roof. I don't know where it's going to be, just since it's on the Esplanade. But obviously, it's one of those days each year where media and supporters alike come and talk to the fans. Hear what I'm sure there's going to be some speeches from Danny Machocha, from Mark Waitman, etc., and some players. So it'll be interesting to see what they're going to offer this year. So we can't wait. And if you haven't already, check your ticket portal, and you should have an offer, or your email, in order to get those tickets. Where they're making this a ticketed event? Maybe it's because are they feeding us? Maybe they're going to feed us. Maybe they're not going to charge us $15 like they do at Percival Molson for a pre-game meal, media meal. I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll find out. We'll follow up, and maybe we'll have a Pronto live. We'll see. Quickly, speaking of live, and as per Cliff's comment quick comment there. We did do some testing yesterday, and to improve, obviously, what we feel is uh, it is a staple of the Flight Deck branding. Flight Deck Live, we have some new equipment. We're really looking forward to using it next this for this coming up game on Thursday post game. So make sure you do stay tuned to all of our socials for when we're going to go live. And again, anything to improve the broadcast, improve what we're doing for you. That's all that matters. So
Yeah. So again, make sure you're liking, subscribing if you're on YouTube. Make sure you're following us on whatever social media platform you watch us on, because when we go live, you're going to get notified if you're subscribed or if you've hit the notification bell. For example, on YouTube, you want to be a part of this, folks. That's the thing. We've invested in ourselves in order to give you, the listeners or viewers, the best possible product. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see where we can take things. And simply put, if we don't believe in ourselves, nobody's going to believe in us, right? So we've taken the steps now to hopefully up our game, as they say, and hopefully the beneficiaries will be you, the listeners slash viewers.
exactly. Also, it kind of and it's something that we kind of touched on personally at the stadium for the last game is that we had noticed recently that there was a slight change in how the team was being how the fans and supporters were being pumped up by the PA announcer. And we noticed one week they had changed it, there was no mention of Montreal's. It was all Alouettes. And then the following week it was back to Montreal's. Well, we happen to find out, Cliff, that the Alouettes there has been a change for the PA announcer for the Montreal Alouettes. So I reached out to Mark Waitman to see if we could get some more information that we could pass along to you, the fans. We did find out that the guy who had been our PA announcer for at least the past 6 years. It was our 3rd season, so we're in our 9th year. So for the last 6 seasons, Eric Odette left at the beginning of the season. He had retired. So we now have 2 guys, and we get to hear their sultry tones each home game. Most of the time, it's going to be Christian Gauthier. But there's also a backup, I guess, when Christian can't do it. It's going to be Sebastien Goulet. I don't know if you have heard any of these words. I know I had to look up some these names, but I know I had to look them up, Cliff. Uh, First and foremost, Sebastien Goulet is an announcer for TVA Sport. But one of the most interesting things is that Christian Gauthier is the PA announcer for the Canada Grand Prix here in Montreal. So if you've been to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve many, many a time, you've heard his voice. So if you recognize his voice I think it was two home games ago, that's exactly who we're listening to now as the PA announcer and the certain, I guess, play-by-play in stadium play-by-play for the fans. So obviously we want to welcome both Sebastian and Christian to the Alouettes family. And uh, they're now a part of the entertainment, and they're also part of the atmosphere now at Percival Molson for all the home games in 2024, and I'm sure to and beyond.
Mhm. I will say though, it a lot of people don't necessarily think about the PA announcer and the role that he has to play within, as part of the in-game interest, the in-game experience, the entertainment aspect of things, as trying to keep the crowd entertained and informed and letting them know what's going on, who's doing what, and so on. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to that job. And Eric Odette, what he did it like a boss. He definitely did a
Yeah,
fantastic job, and really got, just with him and DJ Wordy Word knowing exactly the right music to play, the right things to say. It's just, everything was just on the nose, as far as playing the right music at the right time and doing what they could to get the crowd hyped up. And unfortunately, these 2 gentlemen have some pretty big shoes to fill. And listen, I wish them all the best. I mean, it's, one thing I would definitely say is, take this and make it your own. Don't try to replicate what other announcers have done in the past. It's you got to make this your own thing. You got to bring your own flavor to this. And again, people will get on board with you. They'll give you a chance. Just try not to screw up the names, and just have fun with it. That's the only thing I can suggest is have fun with it. Listen to the crowd, because the crowd will tell you right away too if they're feeling it or not. So if you listen to the crowd, you listen to how people react to certain things, you'll get a good idea of which direction you want to take this. So once again, I wish both Sebastien and Christian all the best, the best of luck in this position.
By the way, if you wanted to hear, our former PA announcer, Eric Odette, we did speak with him back in season 3. So if you head back into our archives, season 3, episode 9, we had an interview with him to hear about his career behind the mic and stuff like that. So go back and listen to those in our archives. So, okay. So we have come across, all the guys where the Owls currently stand leading up to this game versus Saskatchewan Roughriders. First and foremost, I am very surprised, even with Cody Fajardo out, Cliff, that still the current line for the game itself is anywhere from 3.5 to the Alouettes being favored to be anywhere between 3.5 and 4.5 points.
The usual
I'm
hometown bump.
Yeah. What is it? What do we usually say? It's you get 3 points streaming at home.
Yeah.
But again, we're going up against a former Alouette. Well, short-time Alouette.
It counts. He definitely was an Alouette. He definitely played.
That's true.
Not to the extent that he has been here in or he has been in Saskatchewan, but yes, Shea Patterson did wear an Alouettes uniform and did step into. He gets to see some very limited game action, but he definitely was a part of this team.
Yep. And we have these two teams coming in both at 5-1, top of each division. Alouettes, Riders come in, Cliff. These two teams come in 1-2 when it comes to turnover ratio. Saskatchewan comes in at a +11. Alouettes come in at a +6. And I'm just I'm looking at where these two teams are located. I can understand why they're both at 5-1. And then both teams are really it's going to be a completely type of different game, I think, because everybody expected it to be a Trevor Harris versus a Cody Fajardo, having everybody, but that's not the case. We have a Caleb Evans once again, second year in a row. He is going to be behind center for the Alouettes going up against the Roughriders. Now, we mentioned already the three-headed monster and running back. We know that the Alouettes really have been hit and miss when it comes to the running game so far this season. Fletch does go off as he did last week, last game, and obviously the game prior to that. What is the thing that the Alouettes do you think need to center on the most in order for them to get this win this week? And I know I mentioned the C2 inconsistent Caleb. What do you see that the Alouettes need to center on in order to get this win and to move to 6-1?
Simply put, I think they got to set the tone, whether it's offensively or defensively. They got to set the tone right away with their first series, regardless of whether they're on offense or defense to start. Whoever it is, they got to set the tone right off the bat. You want to make it clear against the Saskatchewan team that you're not here to play. I mean, you're here to play, but I mean, you're not here to screw around. Basically, you really want to set the tone almost immediately. And if it's on defense and you're just getting into Shea Patterson's kitchen, disrupting his timing with the receivers. Let's not forget AJ Ouellette is not going to be playing in this game. That was one of the prize
too. Yeah,
that was one of the prize acquisitions for Saskatchewan in the free agency, and he's not going to be in the lineup. Instead, Frankie Hickson is going to be carrying the rock for the Riders. But this defense is going to have to really shut down Shea Patterson and take the receivers right out of the game, because there are some really, really solid receivers for Saskatchewan, including Samuel Emilis and Aju, who a lot of people were comparing him to Jamel Richardson. I mean, that is not nothing right there. And
No.
Sam Emilus grew up in Montreal, idolizing S.J. Green. That's the reason why he wears number 19 for the Riders, is in tribute to S.J. Green. So I mean, there's you hear those names being referenced with these two particular members of the Riders, and you sit up and take notice right away. I mean, like, arguably those are the two of the biggest weapons that Shea Patterson has at his disposal right now, because Keon Schaefer Baker, unfortunately, is not going to be playing in this game, along with Ouellette. Both those guys are out with injury. So this is going to be the opportunity now for a guy like Aju to come in and light it up. Sam Emilus has just been making outstanding catch after outstanding catch. Another one, Jareth Stearns, has also too been an absolutely phenomenal receiver. And as good as they are offensively, defensively as well. Roland Milligan is just making life miserable for opposing quarterbacks. And to be honest, that's one of the areas where I'm concerned when it comes to Caleb Evans, is especially after the way he was picked off by Wynton McManus against, playing for Toronto 2 weeks ago. I mean, Roland Milligan can have that kind of game against Caleb Evans. And that's something that I hope that this offense pays attention to. And, they got to respect what this Saskatchewan defense brings, because they're not afraid to go after the quarterback. They're not afraid to bring the house, essentially. And as much as I have faith in this offensive line in being able to keep Caleb or Davis or whoever's going to be behind center upright and mobile, you got to give the quarterbacks the chance to make plays happen. And this Saskatchewan defense doesn't miss. I mean, Corey Mace is a defensive genius, and you're seeing that now as a head coach here in Saskatchewan. Like, he's doing the thing right now and looking really good as a result. I definitely see a lot of chess match elements in this game as well. I feel like both of these teams at 5-1 are as evenly matched as possible. I mean, both have a great defense. Both have a very strong offense that now is working with QB2. Both can run the rock if needed. Both have outstanding receivers. I mean, like, this is going to be a fun game. I mean, I think what Montreal's going to have to do, as I said, is set the tone early and often. They got to bring everything right off the bat and just try to catch Saskatchewan off guard. And I would say, similarly, that's what Saskatchewan has to do to Montreal, is just punch them in the mouth right away and just get them reeling. I mean, this has all the makings of being a very fun, like a heavyweight contest, but it's going to be a lot of fun. I have a feeling we're not going to see what we saw last year, where Saskatchewan was just completely decimated and just got their ass handed to them by Montreal. It's not going to be so easy for the Alouettes to win this game, but I definitely think that no matter who's behind center, I think they're going to rise to the occasion. I definitely think Caleb Evans has the opportunity now in front of him. He remembers what he did last year against the same Saskatchewan Roughriders team and against Ottawa in his 2 starts. He got the W's there. There's no reason why he can't get the W again against Saskatchewan. I mean, this is going to be a very tightly contested match. Once again, this could come down to a field goal, and you've got 2 very good field goal kickers in Jose Maltos and Brett Lothar as well. I mean, who knows? Maybe, for all we know, maybe those are the guys who are going to do all the scoring on Thursday night. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But do I think this is a contest the Alouettes can win? Yes. Do I think this is a contest the Saskatchewan can win? Also, yes. It really is going to come down to who can stay disciplined, who can play their game, who can work their plan the best, and who's going to stay disciplined. I think that's who's going to walk away with the win Thursday night.
I think it's very easy to say the team who had the least amount of mistakes should win this game. But I agree. I think the Owls need to try to start off hot. Caleb needs to. It's weird to say Caleb needs to harness his inner Cody. Try to have a stat line like Cody does. Try to stay upright, but yet, because you are a little bit more mobile, use your legs to your advantage, but yet don't make stupid passes. Make the right read, because as you saw 2 weeks versus Toronto, you just throw something, bad things happen, and that's exactly what happened. So another huge thing, by the way, that I think a lot of people are haven't talked about, Cliff, for this game itself, is going to be special teams. because you got two great returners on both sides. And obviously, we the guy for Saskatchewan used to be a Montreal dude. He gets traded. Mario Alford gets traded, becomes the special teams player of the year, and look what he's done for them. Same type, almost the same type of situation that going up against the guys from Toronto last game. Hopefully, the week off allowed them to shore up special teams because they need that. If they can control the special teams, especially with how controlling where Saskatchewan starts, that right there may determine if the Alouettes are able to win this thing going away, or if it's going to be really, really close.
Yeah, I think you got to keep Mario Alford honest. I mean, that's just keep him in check. I think that's going to be key for Montreal is to just limit him because they know what he can do, and we all know what he's capable of doing if given the opportunity. James Letcher, same thing for the Alouettes. I mean, I'm waiting. I've been patiently waiting for him to break one off, and one can't help but wonder if maybe, just maybe, like Chandler Worthy did last year, maybe he gets his first kick return or punt return touchdown this year against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Could very well happen, and if nothing else, you got to be able to just pin them deep and just make them work for everything. I think that's the key. You're gonna have to really test out Shea Patterson and really give him the challenge that arguably he may just not have had yet. I mean, again, he's not perfect, but I mean he's been doing a very solid job for the Rough Riders. I mean, especially in relief of Trevor Harris. I mean, as we talked about, people were expecting Trevor Harris to be the man this year, and he very well could be when it's all said and done. But as of right now, he's on the 6-game list. Shea Patterson's coming into a situation that he's definitely prepared for. I mean, he's worked under Trevor Harris here in Montreal and also now in Saskatchewan. He knows what's expected out of him, and I think if Montreal lets him, he could run his game on them. And quite frankly, I think this is where the defense really has to come through and do what we have expected them to do each and every game this year. And let's face it, aside from the game in Toronto where they just kind of looked average, this defense can make a lot of quarterbacks just look terrible. And I think that's going to be the challenge for this defense is, can you make Shea Patterson look terrible? And I think they're up for that. I think that they know what they have to do in order to help this team win, in order to help Caleb Evans get his first win of 2024. I fully expect this defense to do what they did last year and just step up in a huge way and just make life miserable for whoever the quarterback is for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Exactly. I think that's going to be one of the keys for the game for Montreal is just, once again, set the tone early and often, whether it's on offense or defense, however you start this game. That's you got to dictate the pace, simply put.
Yeah. And before we go, can I give you 60 seconds? Because I know we should at least mention to it. Let me give you 60 seconds to talk about the gentleman who's coming to Montreal. He's gotten a lot of talk about what he's doing, but talk about the gentleman who's trying to set a world record by heading to every single CFL city and what's behind it.
Yeah, what it is, it's because again, lots of people have gone to all 9 CFL teams, so that's not the record itself. What's being set for the Guinness World Record, though, is the fastest time to visit all 9 CFL stadiums. It was done last year or the record was set last year by Bobby Dubois out in BC. And challenging it this year is a friend of ours, actually, a big member of the CFL family in Chris Temefachuk. I'm sure I screwed up his name.
I think it's almost spot on. I think, yeah.
I'm sure. Anyways, you know him as X-Pegger on Twitter or Twix, whatever you want to call that social platform. He's taken it upon himself to try and beat Bobby Dubois' record of attending all 9 CFL stadiums in the fastest time. But in addition to that, he's not just doing that he's not doing this just for the glory of having a Guinness World Record, which is pretty cool all by itself. He is also raising funds for CFL Fans Fight Cancer, which, as you folks, anyone who's listened to this podcast for any length of time know, Grey Cup, when it comes to one of the events as far as Grey Cup goes, besides the game itself, is the CFL Fans Fight Cancer event that takes place on Grey Cup Saturday. Lots of money has been raised for cancer research, and how it works is every year they raise all this money and they donate it to the host cities, like one of their cancer charities. And this year is no different. Game's going to be in Vancouver. There's a Vancouver charity. The name escapes me now, but they're going to be the recipients of the funds that are going to be raised. And once again, CFL fans are going through and they are doing satellite events to try and help raise money, and ultimately they want to beat the goal. A little over $40,000 was raised last year for the Grey Cup in Hamilton, and the goal is obviously do better than that. God willing, by the time the Grey Cup gets to Vancouver, hopefully the CFL family will have raised more than $40,000 to get the event started. What Chris is doing, though, is he is collecting funds as a result of all the stadiums that he's going to be visiting. He's there with a bucket just collecting funds. And there's also a QR code that you can scan if you want to donate online as well. And yes, he will be at the game tomorrow, or Thursday, I should say. If you get a chance to see him, he's not going to be hard to miss. He's wearing a black and pink CFL Fans Fight Cancer jersey. He's going to have his bucket with the logo on it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to the game tomorrow, open your wallets. This is a tremendous opportunity to help with the raising of funds to, for cancer awareness, for cancer research, all that important stuff. I mean, we want to break that $40,000 record easily. My hope is that by the time everybody gets a Grey Cup in Vancouver in November, that you're already past the $40,000 mark. That would be amazing. I don't know what the tally is right now. I know quite a bit of money has been raised. In fact, funny enough, people in Saskatchewan are actually having a taco bar buffet at one of the restaurants there. And the proceeds for that is going to the CFL Fans Fight Cancer event, which is absolutely fantastic. So props to Rider Nation for that. But folks, if you see Chris tomorrow, like I said, he's not going to be hard to miss. He'll be easy to spot. Look for the jersey, look for the black and the pink, look for the bucket. Open your wallets, throw all your money in there, please. Or if you don't have money on you, scan the QR code, make the donation there. You get a tax receipt, so why wouldn't you do it that way too? I mean, do whatever it takes to help Chris not only beat this Guinness World Record, but also to help raise a crap ton of money for cancer research. I mean, I would love to see this initiative go past the $40,000 mark, or well past it even, by the time the Grey Cup gets to Vancouver. So you see Chris, say hi to him, wish him well for his journey. I'm looking forward to seeing him tomorrow. I'm looking forward to making a nice donation on behalf of Alouettes Nation as well. Folks, I can't say this enough. Definitely help Chris out, help the CFL family out, help everybody in this initiative to help CFL fans fight cancer. It's something that's always been near and dear to me, and I think everybody knows somebody that's been affected by cancer, and anything you can do to help raise awareness and research and all that wonderful stuff, by all means, open your hearts, open your wallets, and let's help Chris not only achieve a Guinness World Record, which would be absolutely amazing, but to help raise funds for this. I mean, that to me, that's a win no matter what. Regardless of what happens on the field, just helping Chris to be a part of this adventure and be a part of this journey for him. To me, that's going to be a win all day long.
Also on our socials, as we always give a rough play-by-play of the game itself. Stay tuned to our socials also to see when we are scheduled to have the next episode of Flight Deck Live. I'd probably say it'd be anywhere between 11 and 11:15 p.m. Eastern time. But stay tuned to all of our socials again to see when that is, and have the link for when everything goes live. But other than that. If you miss any part of any of our other episodes, make sure you head over to our archives or head over to our socials over on YouTube also to catch up. So we'll be seeing you after the game this week, win, lose, or draw. And we'll also be seeing you next week on the next episode of the Alouettes Flight Deck. So for everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on Final Approach.